The forest looked peaceful from a distance. Nothing suggested the silence would soon become a nightmare. On September 17, 2003, a 4-person military reconnaissance unit entered the dense woodland of northern Washington state, assigned to map terrain for a potential training exercise. Standard mission, routine assignment. No one expected what would happen next. Captain Marcus Reynolds led the team, experienced, decorated. The kind of soldier who knew wilderness like most people know their own living rooms. With him were 3 other specialists, Staff Sergeant Daniel Reyes, Technical Sergeant Karen Walsh, and Corporal Michael Chen, all highly trained, all professionals with years of field experience. Their initial radio communications were completely normal, check-ins every 30 minutes. Steady GPS tracking, predictable movement patterns through relatively familiar terrain. The forest was thick Douglas, firs towering hundreds of feet, dense undergrowth making visibility challenging, but nothing these soldiers couldn't handle. Then something changed. At 14:22 hours, their GPS signals became erratic. Static crackled over radio frequencies. Brief fragmented transmissions suggested something. But what exactly? No one could say for certain. By 15 o'clock hours, all communication stopped. Completely. Military protocol kicked in immediately. Search and rescue teams were dispatched within 2 hours. Helicopter units scanned the forest from above. Ground teams moved systematically through the dense woodland, looking for any trace of the missing reconnaissance unit. What they found was bizarre. Approximately 3.7 miles into the forest, the team's tracks simply ended. No signs of struggle, no blood, no equipment left behind. Just an abrupt termination of footprints and movement traces, as if the 4 soldiers had been lifted straight off the ground. Search dogs refused to track further. They would approach point of the tracks, then whimper and retreat. Trained canines with impeccable tracking records suddenly displaying unexplained anxiety. Military investigators were baffled. The terrain showed no obvious geological disruptions, no sinkholes, no sudden cliff edges. Nothing that would explain 4 trained professionals vanishing without a trace. Forensic analysis of their last known GPS coordinates revealed something equally strange. Electronic equipment recovered from their base camp showed signal interference at the exact moment communication was lost. Not just standard radio static change. Something more systematic, deliberate. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. Multiple search efforts found nothing substantial. No bodies, no equipment, no definitive evidence of what might have occurred. Official military reports remained frustratingly vague. Inconclusive circumstances surrounding personnel disappearance. Bureaucratic language that said everything and nothing simultaneously. Rumors began circulating. Some suggested covert military operations gone wrong. Others whispered about environmental anomalies. A few conspiracy theorists proposed more exotic explanations, but solid answers remained elusive. The families of Captain Reynolds, Sergeant Reyes, Sergeant Walsh and Corporal Chen were left in an impossible situation. No closure, no understanding, just an endless painful uncertainty about what happened to their loved ones. By 2005, the case was officially classified as a missing persons investigation, but everyone knew the real story was far more complicated. Something happened in those woods, something that defied standard explanation, and whatever that something was, it chose to reveal nothing. Then in 2007 Dr. Elena Martinez arrived, a quantum physicist specializing in anomalous electromagnetic phenomena. She had been tracking unusual signal patterns across multiple remote locations worldwide. The military reconnaissance disappearance wasn't just another case file to her, it represented something far more intricate. Her initial analysis of the recovered electronic data revealed microscopic quantum fluctuations embedded within the signal interference, patterns that suggested not random noise but deliberately encoded information. Information that seemed to exist simultaneously across multiple frequency bands, a mathematical impossibility by conventional understanding. Martinez requested unrestricted access to the original case files. After months of bureaucratic wrangling and strategic leveraging of her academic credentials, she was granted limited clearance. What she discovered was beyond her initial expectations. Electromagnetic readings from the forest showed statistically significant deviations from standard background radiation. Localized magnetic field disruptions that couldn't be explained by geological or atmospheric conditions. Something was fundamentally altering the quantum landscape of that specific geographic coordinate. Her research team began reconstructing the reconnaissance unit's hours using advanced computational modeling. Digital simulations suggested the team hadn't simply vanished. They had been systematically displaced, transitioned, moved through some form of spatial discontinuity that human instrumentation could barely register. Satellite imagery from the time revealed additional anomalies. Infrared scans showed temperature fluctuations inconsistent with normal forest ecology. Brief, intense thermal signatures that appeared and disappeared within milliseconds. Like something was momentarily breaching dimensional boundaries. Dr. Martinez's colleagues were skeptical. Her theories sounded more like science fiction than legitimate research. But she had hard data, quantifiable, reproducible measurements that demanded serious scientific investigation. She began interviewing surviving family members of the missing soldiers. Each conversation revealed subtle, overlapping details that seemed too precise to be coincidental. Captain Reynolds' wife mentioned his recurring dreams about geometric light in the weeks before the mission. Sergeant Razor's daughter recalled him describing unusual radio frequency sounds during previous forest reconnaissance operations. These personal accounts, combined with the scientific data, suggested a pattern, not random occurrence but something deliberate. Systematic. By 2009, Martinez had assembled a small, hand-picked research team. Specialists in quantum mechanics, advanced signal processing, and paranormal electromagnetic phenomena. They established a remote research station near the forest's original coordinates, equipped with state-of-the-art monitoring equipment. Initial readings were inconclusive but provocative. Localized spatial temporal anomalies that flickered at the edge of measurability. Quantum entanglement signatures that suggested something was communicating or attempting communication through fundamental physical laws themselves. The team's equipment would occasionally capture fragments, brief cryptic data bursts that seemed to originate from nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. Mathematical sequences that defied standard algorithmic interpretation. Signal patterns that suggested intelligent design yet remained frustratingly abstract. What were they detecting? A communication attempt. A dimensional breach. Something attempting to make contact through the only language it understood. Pure information encoded at the quantum level. Dr. Martinez knew they were close to something profound, something that would fundamentally reshape human understanding of reality itself. But proximity was not comprehension, and whatever existed in those woods was not interested in being easily understood. The investigation was just beginning. In late 2010, the first significant breakthrough occurred during a moonless winter night. Martinez's quantum sensor array registered an unprecedented quantum coherence event that lasted precisely 17.3 milliseconds. The data burst was complex, a cascading algorithmic sequence that seemed to contain multiple dimensional signatures simultaneously. Elena Rodriguez, the team's signal processing specialist, spent weeks decrypting the fragment. Her initial analysis suggested the signal wasn't random communication, but a type of dimensional mapping protocol, like geographic coordinates, but translated through quantum entanglement principles that human mathematical models could barely comprehend. "It's a navigation signal," she told Martinez during a late-night briefing. "But not for conventional space. Something is tracking something else." The research station became increasingly isolated. Equipment malfunctions became more frequent. Electronic systems would spontaneously reset, displaying fragments of complex geometric patterns before returning to normal functionality. Infrared cameras would capture momentary thermal disruptions, perfect geometric shapes that appeared and vanished faster than human perception could register. Local wildlife behavior changed subtly. Migratory bird patterns became erratic. Nocturnal predators avoided specific forest quadrants with unprecedented precision. Indigenous tracker teams hired as consultants reported inexplicable equipment failures and disorientation when approaching certain geographic zones. Martinez suspected the anomalies weren't random environmental disruptions but deliberate spatial manipulations. Something was systematically altering the fundamental electromagnetic and quantum characteristics of specific geographic regions. By 2011, the research expanded. Classified funding from multiple international scientific organizations provided advanced monitoring equipment. Quantum entanglement sensors developed by a classified NATO research program were discreetly integrated into the forest monitoring array. The new sensors revealed something extraordinary. Localized spatial distortions were occurring with increasing frequency, not random events but structured disruptions that suggested intentional manipulation. Mathematical modeling indicated these disruptions followed complex algorithmic patterns, like a language being gradually constructed through spatial temporal modifications. Dr. Marcus Chen, a theoretical physicist specializing in quantum mechanics, developed sophisticated predictive models. His algorithms suggested the disruptions weren't random environmental phenomena but deliberate communication attempts by an intelligence operating outside conventional dimensional understanding. "We're being spoken to," Chen explained during a classified briefing. "But the language isn't verbal, it's structural, dimensional pure information translated through fundamental physical laws." The research team began documenting everything. Massive data archives were created, with redundant storage across multiple international research facilities. Every signal fragment, every thermal anomaly, every quantum coherence event was meticulously recorded and analyzed. Gradually, a disturbing pattern emerged. The spatial disruptions were increasing in complexity and frequency. What began as millisecond-long quantum events were now lasting several seconds. The geometric patterns became more intricate, suggesting a learning process. Like an intelligence was gradually developing communication protocols specifically designed to interface with human perception. Martinez recognized the implications immediately. This wasn't just a scientific discovery. This was first contact, but not through traditional methods, not through radio signals or mathematical sequences. This was communication through the fundamental fabric of reality itself. The forest had become more than a geographic location. It was a living communication interface, a dimensional translation mechanism designed to bridge incomprehensible intelligence with human perception, and something was desperately trying to communicate. The question was no longer whether contact was possible. The question was what was attempting to make contact, and more critically, what did it want? By 2014, the research team's psychological strain became evident. Martinez noticed subtle changes in the researchers' increased paranoia, vivid night terrors, unexplained memory lapses. Chen was the first to experience direct cognitive interference. During a routine analysis session, he suddenly began transcribing complex mathematical sequences that didn't originate from any known human mathematical system. The symbols were simultaneously geometric and biological, defying traditional dimensional logic. The forest itself seemed to be responding. Satellite imagery revealed microscopic structural shifts in vegetation, not random mutations but precise, coordinated transformations. Plant cellular structures were subtly realigning, creating intricate communication networks that extended far beyond traditional botanical understanding. Indigenous tribal elders from surrounding regions began reporting ancestral memory fragments. Their oral histories spoke of a living intelligence that existed between physical dimensions, an entity that communicated through spatial manipulation rather than conventional language. Elena Rodriguez, a neurobiologist recruited to the team, discovered something unprecedented. Brain scans of researchers who spent extended periods near the quantum disruption zones showed neurological adaptations. Neural pathways were developing unique connectivity patterns, suggesting the spatial anomalies were actively restructuring human cognitive frameworks. The breakthrough came unexpectedly during a routine monitoring session in November 2015. A massive quantum coherence event lasted precisely 47 seconds. Unlike previous disruptions, this event generated a structured information cascade that could be partially decoded. The message wasn't linguistic but computational, multi-dimensional algorithm that suggested complex intentionality. Martinez understood then that they weren't merely observing an alien communication attempt. They were participants in a profound interdimensional dialogue where the very act of observation was part of the communication protocol. The forest had become a living translation mechanism, transforming abstract dimensional intelligence into comprehensible spatial information. Humanity wasn't just receiving a message, it was being systematically prepared to understand a form of communication that transcended human perceptual limitations. By 2017, the research facility was permanently relocated within the forest's central quadrant. Traditional scientific methodologies became increasingly irrelevant. The team now operated more like interdimensional translators than traditional researchers. The OWL report, classified at the highest international security levels, concluded that contact had occurred, not through traditional means but through a fundamental restructuring of spatial cognitive interfaces. What remained unknown was the ultimate intention behind this extraordinary communication attempt. Was it a preliminary exploration, a deliberate evolutionary intervention, a complex form of dimensional reconnaissance? The forest continued its silent, geometric conversation, waiting, transforming, communicating. And humanity listened, slowly learning to understand a language spoken not in words but in the fundamental mathematics of reality itself. The quantum entanglement between human consciousness and the forest's dimensional intelligence deepened exponentially. By late 2019, Dr. Martinez noticed something profoundly unsettling. Individual team members were developing synchronized neurological responses even when physically separated. Their dreams contained identical geometric patterns. Their cognitive processes seemed to be merging into a collective consciousness that extended beyond individual human perception. Genetic analysis revealed microscopic changes in researchers' DNA, subtle recombinations that suggested an adaptive response to the forest's quantum transmission. These weren't mutations but deliberate restructurings of human genetic potential. In the OWL-documented observation, the forest's spatial geometry began to pulse with an almost rhythmic intelligence. Complex mathematical sequences emerged from root systems, bark textures, and leaf venation, creating a living, breathing computational network that defied traditional scientific understanding. The research team realized they were no longer just observers. They had become part of a larger, more intricate system of dimensional communication. The forest was teaching humanity a new language, one spoken through spatial intelligence, quantum resonance, and fundamental mathematical principles. As winter approached, the forest's transformative signals gradually stabilized. The quantum disruptions became less frequent but exponentially more precise. Whatever intelligence was communicating had achieved its initial objective, establishing a preliminary bridge between human perception and a higher dimensional understanding of reality. What remained was a profound unspoken understanding. Humanity had been granted a glimpse into a communication system far beyond its current comprehension, to listen, and to reimagine the very nature of consciousness itself. The forest continued its eternal patient conversation, waiting for the moment when human understanding would catch up to its intricate multidimensional dialogue.